chickens, turkeys, eggs, food for the entire world. The route of hatching eggs and baby chicks to our customers worldwide is lined with hazards. Chicks, poults, and eggs can sometimes be subjected to a wide variety of environmental stresses that threaten their viability and livability. Stresses like sudden and jolting movements, extremes in temperature, and variations in humidity. We hope this video will help you to understand how to handle fertile hatching eggs and day-old poultry. Let's start with hatching eggs. The fertile eggs we ship are not intended for eating. That's because each one contains a live embryo that will be incubated and hatched into a chick or turkey poult once it arrives at its destination. Once the eggs arrive at the airport, hold them in a cooler under appropriate temperature and humidity conditions. The safe zone for hatching eggs is 60 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit or 15 to 18 degrees Celsius, with a relative humidity of 75 to 80%. Remember, these are ideal temperatures, but do take care to get the temperature as close as possible and keep them away from direct sunlight. If egg cases arrive loose, they must be placed on skids before they can be stored in an appropriate temperature-controlled location. Egg cases should be stacked on the skids in an alternating pattern like this for maximum stability. Do not stack egg cases more than 5 layers high. Take care to stack egg cases and to prepare skids correctly. For safety, allow only 24 egg cases per skid. If egg cases arrive already prepared on skids, place the skids in an appropriate temperature-controlled area until time for palletization and shipment. Caution: if the temperature becomes too hot, the eggs will begin to incubate. Too cold, and the embryo may be killed. There are 2 basic procedures for loading fertile eggs onto an airplane. The method you choose depends upon the type of aircraft and whether it's a passenger jet or a freighter. For large cargo planes, the palletizing method works best. First, egg cases are removed from the cooler on skids and loaded by forklift onto the pallet. Again, we recommend an alternating pattern for stacking egg cases on skids because it lends stability and lessens strain on bottom boxes. A note of caution: when using the palletizing method, make certain all skids are large enough. Otherwise, some cases may fall off or be crushed, damaging the eggs. Never place more than 30 egg cases on a skid. Depending on climate conditions such as rain, some shippers may require you to cover the cases with a large plastic sheet once the eggs are loaded onto the pallet. If it is raining during the delivery of egg cases to the aircraft, a plastic sheet or removable tarp is advisable. Cargo netting should always be used for additional stability. Egg cases should be loaded no more than 4 layers high, or 96 cases on a lower deck pallet, and no more than 5 layers high on an upper deck pallet, which equals 120 cases. Remember, each case weighs from 55 to 60 pounds, so loading skids more than 5 cases high may cause breakage in the lower cases. Each pallet can hold up to 124 cases, but do not load them to capacity unless it's absolutely necessary. The pallet shown here has 124 cases. The next stop is the loading dock. It doesn't happen often, but sometimes a loaded skid or pallet can come crashing to the ground. And when it does, it becomes an extremely costly accident. All because a driver or forklift operator forgot to set the stops. Keeping alert reduces the chances for expensive and potentially dangerous accidents. After all, a loaded pallet may weigh over 7,000 pounds, so setting the stops is extremely important. A second procedure for loading eggs onto planes uses what is known as an LD3 container. LD3 containers are usually found on large passenger aircraft and hold up to 46 cases of eggs if palletized properly. Due to sloped sides on the bottom of an LD3, it's important to pack the eggs correctly to avoid damage. Don't load the cases like this. Instead, make sure to load them like this. Whenever fertile eggs are tilted, the risk of damaging them increases. Each time a case is jarred, jostled, or tilted, it reduces the chances that the embryos inside will hatch. Keep the cases level while loading. The directions on the cases are plain and simple. this side up and handle with care. Once an LD3 container is full, it is loaded by forklift onto trucks for transport to the aircraft. These trucks are equipped with hydraulic roller systems that allow the containers to be easily loaded onto the truck by forklift. Once on the truck, the rollers are lowered and the stop set so the container cannot move. The truck doors are then closed tight for the ride to the aircraft. Timing at this stage is crucial. It's important that the cases get to the carrier on time, but we don't want them to arrive so far in advance that they sit on the truck too long. Sitting on the truck when it's too hot or too cold can again reduce the hatchability of the eggs. However, if the truck is temperature controlled, it is okay to keep the eggs on the truck. Remember, eggs need to be stored at an ambient temperature of 60 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit or 15 to 18 degrees Celsius and out of direct sunlight. Egg cases should never be used as chairs or props. Any weight on the cases may damage the eggs. Once the egg cases are safely loaded onto the originating flight, the job is still not complete. Now the pilot and handling crew must be notified that eggs are on board. If the eggs or egg cases are damaged in any way, such as signs of leakage or dented cases, immediately inform the exporter and freight forwarder and wait for further instructions before shipping the damaged goods. When unforeseen flight plan deviations and any delays occur, the airline must contact the exporter, the consignee, and the freight forwarder to allow them to make necessary preparations. Communication is extremely important. But what if this is your cargo? Not hatching eggs, but live, day-old, vigorous chicks or poults. It is important to understand how day-old poultry boxes should be palletized before shipment. Chicks or poults can be delivered from the hatchery to the airport in one of two ways. They either arrive loose, like this, in which case the freight forwarder or airline personnel must palletize the chicks before loading them onto the aircraft. Or they'll arrive like this, on preloaded pallets delivered directly to the warehouse or plane. If they're delivered loose, it is best to keep them in their climate-controlled truck until time for palletization. When this is not possible, chicks or poults should be stowed away in a warehouse or ramp area while waiting. Please be careful of the temperature range and air circulation for the chicks. Ideally, chick boxes being stowed while waiting to be palletized should be stacked no more than 4 boxes high, with at least 4 inches of airspace in between the stacks for good air circulation. Boxes can be stacked higher than this by using spacers, but care must be taken to avoid crushing the lower boxes and to ensure sufficient airspace. Don't stack them loosely, or they may topple to the floor. Be sure to keep boxes 3 to 4 inches off cold concrete floors and away from direct sources of heat or cold winds. When chick boxes arrive loose, boxes should be loaded onto pallets and secured with spacers between the stacks before they ever leave the warehouse. The spacers are there for a purpose: to keep the boxes separated and to allow air movement around them during shipping. There are 2 types of spacers: individual and built-in. Individual spacers must be placed on the corners of each box to secure the proper airspace between the boxes. This process must be repeated on each layer of the pallet as it is built. Built-in spacers are part of the chick box lid and cannot be removed. Do not bend the spacers down for any reason. They won't work if they are used like this, because bending the spacers down will cause the boxes to fall together, cutting off airflow to the chicks that could result in significant chick mortality. Often, wooden chimneys are arranged within the pallet configuration so that all boxes have at least one side open to a bigger airspace. This airspace within the middle of the pallet actually helps hot air from within the pallet to escape and cooler air to be drawn down across the chicks or poults as they are transported. After palletization of chick boxes is complete, a cargo net must be placed on every pallet to ensure that chick boxes do not move during shipment. When tightening the cargo net, make sure the boxes are stabilized, but not crushed. Never enclose or completely wrap boxes of chicks or loaded pallets with plastic sheeting or tarps. This covering will trap the chick's body heat and could cause mortality in only a few short minutes. However, when loading or unloading, it is okay to loosely cover, not wrap, the boxes to protect them from rain. Within 3 minutes' time, temperatures can exceed 110 degrees Fahrenheit, 43 degrees Celsius, which can cause high chick mortality. Just like hatching eggs, chick boxes should always remain level and should never be left exposed to direct sunlight. Also, while the chick boxes are on the tarmac during the loading and unloading process, keep the boxes clear of exhaust fumes and excessive drafts. In all cases, observe these minimum safeguards. First, handle with care. Don't jiggle or jostle the boxes, and by all means, do not hold them upside down. It can be fatal to the chicks or poults. Be sure to leave enough airspace between the chick boxes and the compartment ceiling for ventilation. When in doubt, maintain a vent space equal to the depth of one box. Spacers are used to ensure air circulation and to keep the boxes from shifting in flight. As always, make sure the boxes are level and that there is space between the boxes. A second method for delivering chicks to the airport is on preloaded pallets. Do not change or break down a pre-built pallet under any circumstances without the permission of the shipper. Once a pallet truck reaches the airline warehouse, pallets are rolled off the truck for weighing, then rolled back onto the climate-controlled truck. This keeps the chicks under ideal conditions until it is time to load them on the plane. And it's especially beneficial if the temperature outside is extremely hot or extremely cold. It is sometimes possible for a shipper to go directly planeside. When planeside delivery is the method agreed upon for the preloaded pallets, the shipper will, once again, make the appropriate arrangements with the airline or airport authorities. Only this time, the shipper will take the preloaded pallet truck right up next to the plane. Once inside the plane, when possible, don't allow other baggage or cargo to be stored against the pallet of chick boxes. Anything that inhibits air circulation must be avoided at all costs. Place lower pallets rather than higher pallets next to chicks. The lower deck is preferred when possible. If you're shipping other animals besides poultry on the same flight, keep them away from the chicks or poults to avoid the possibility of contamination. It's even a good idea to separate the chicks from different breeding companies that may be traveling on the same flight. If other chicks, poults, or other animals are on the same flight, notify the freight forwarder to allow the shipper the opportunity to choose another option. After the aircraft is loaded with chicks, send a fax or email to personnel at the destination airport and to the freight forwarder to confirm the departure and all pertinent information regarding the shipment. The flight crew should be aware that chicks or poults are on board, so that the air supply is not accidentally shut off. The same goes for personnel at all transit points along the way. When unforeseen flight plan deviations and delays occur, the airline must contact the freight forwarder, exporter, the consignee, and others to allow them to make necessary preparations. Paperwork mistakes, custom clearance problems, or anything else that causes an unexpected delay can be fatal to day-old poultry. The following are some important points to keep in mind, regardless of the method being used to ship chicks or poults. If the chicks or poults must be offloaded during any flight delays or while they are awaiting their connecting flight, get them away from the tarmac and into a protected area as quickly as possible. If the chicks or poults are to remain on the plane during any stops, remember, air circulation is critical. Keep air circulation systems operating during any flight delay. If the plane is scheduled to stop in a cold climate, make sure the chicks or poults are loaded away from the doors so as to keep them away from any drafts during the unloading or loading of other cargo. And by all means, make sure the pilot is aware that valuable breeder chicks are on board the plane. The ideal temperature range for chicks and poults in transit is 70 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit or 21 to 24 degrees Celsius, and good airflow is vital. However, in case the ideal temperatures are not met, day-old poultry is in danger of environmental stressors that can result in high mortality. Exporters include temperature monitors like these to constantly monitor the temperature during transit. These are strategically placed within the shipment and should never be removed. Inadequate airflow and short periods of exposure to extreme temperatures may not immediately harm the chicks or poults, but can affect breeding performance and mortality rates later on. The general rule is, if you are comfortable in short sleeves, the chicks or poults are comfortable too. When chicks must be transferred to a connecting flight, and may be exposed to temperatures outside the recommended range. Extra precautions are necessary, such as ensuring proper airflow and ventilation. If it's too hot, make sure the chicks are placed in a shaded area with plenty of air circulation. Use fans or ventilators whenever possible. If it's too cold outside, keep them away from drafts. In either case, keep the exposure time as short as possible. Make sure to check from time to time to see whether the chicks are comfortable. If the chicks are content, you will be able to hear them chirping softly. When chicks are too hot, they will be quiet and panting with very little chirping. Their beaks will be poking at the outside of the box, trying to get more air. Excessive heat is extremely dangerous. Better a little cool than too warm. If they're too cold, they'll be chirping loudly, almost screeching in fact. Although the chirps are indicators, it may be difficult to identify differences in the sound of the chicks and poults, so rely on the temperature, ventilation, and airflow. Remember the general rule: if you are comfortable in short sleeves, the chicks and poults are comfortable too. Please be aware of how quickly the temperature can change if the chicks are not well ventilated. Many chicks or poults in a small space desperately need moving air. Factors that hinder moving air are solid cargo being placed too closely to the chick boxes, cargo doors not opened and fans not being used during delays, poor box arrangement on a pallet, and poor ventilation in the warehouse or customs area during pre-flight or post-flight. It only takes a few minutes of poor air circulation to severely damage a shipment of chicks. Good air circulation at all times is the key. Even when everything appears to go right during shipment, there is one final concern: documentation. All breeders go to great lengths to ensure they meet the health requirements for each country. Health certificates and pertinent documentation must be signed by accredited veterinarians and federal veterinarians. These documents must accompany the shipment from the hatchery to the destination. Any missing documents could jeopardize the entire shipment. It is imperative that the documentation stay with the pallet and that handling of the documentation is minimal. Only necessary personnel should remove documents from the packet, and care should be taken to ensure that everything is returned to the packet after inspection. Chickens, turkeys, and eggs. All of us involved in breeding and transporting poultry are literally helping feed the world. And it's possible for us to ship chicks, poults, and hatching eggs safely anywhere in the world, if everyone along the way does his or her job correctly. All it takes is communication and awareness. Communication throughout transport and awareness that you are handling live, valuable cargo. We're counting on you.